What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Immortal Minds. I'm DDK, of course. This is episode 28, and we have First Strike right around the corner. Joining me for today's preview episode for First Strike, as well as some chat around their rights plans for 2021, is, of course, Chris Puckett. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing awesome, man. Episode 28, already there.
I know it's hype. Okay, we've got two coaches with us here to discuss things as well, which is going to be really interesting. I don't think we could have gotten any more perfect guests. So, Taylor, welcome. Taylor of TSM, of course.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
A little more awake. Yep. I like that.
And we've got the resident sleeper, Sliggy, Coach Sliggy from Team Liquid. How you doing, man?
I'm good, dude. Good evening, I guess, for me. But yeah, I'm good, guys. How are we all doing?
Excellent. Before we get started, though, can we all confirm Sliggy is the greatest observer of all time? Sliggy, can you tell us a quick background? Before you were coaching Liquid, how long were you observing? What's your road in esports? Because you're an old man, even though you don't look like it.
Yeah, I am an old man. I'm like, I'll say my age. I'm 31. But I did observing, I think 2014. So like 6 years ago was my first time. And then, yeah, just kind of really grinded loads. And then eventually, like 4 years in, got my first major with the Faceit major. Worked a lot with like the Faceit guys, and yeah, and then ever since then, I did every major since then, so 3 in a row. And then I felt like I had done all I could do with observing. I felt like it got to a good level. I felt like everyone increased. I don't know. I felt like it just increased the viewer experience. I felt like all the observers had to kind of step up their game a little bit. Kind of like I just wanted to up the game, kind of make it a little bit better. So I feel like I achieved that. I think I did that. And so yeah, I'm happy to kind of go out what I believe was the top and then move on to something else.
Yeah, the way it was described to me was, excuse me, a huge loss for CSGO, but a huge win for Team Liquid. So it seems everyone's happy with where you're at on Liquid. Congrats on everything you've accomplished so far. But Dan, go ahead, kick off the show.
Yeah, of course. Today there's so much to talk about. We have First Strike, as I mentioned, right around the corner. So we'll definitely get into the nitty gritty with that. And, to those of you uninitiated into Valorant, I'm surprised you found this show. But First Strike is Riot Games' first sort of take in a tournament system that's been running in the first year of this game, Valorant. And into next year, when things are going to be a little bit more serious, plans have already been laid out. So we should be talking about that. We have they've called it the 2021 Valorant Champions Tour, and I can't really express how excited I am for this, because it's there's definitely been some growing pains kind of figuring out Valorant as an esport in this first year, but 2021 sounds pretty epic. And what they've said is that they want this to rival Worlds in League of Legends. That's their vision, is that the finals of this will rival Worlds. That's a huge statement, and I think very exciting for all of us Valorant fans. So here's the structure. What do we think of this initially? Like, let's kind of do a little kind of round robin take here. What do you think, Chris?
I'll chime in first.
Yeah.
So I like it. I mean, it's pretty simple structure, as you can see there in the triangle. We're going wide with the challengers, so it's open to everybody. The top performers from challengers are moving on into masters, and then at the very end, the best of the best are moving into an international event with Valorant Champions. Now, masters, it all depends on COVID, right? These could be the first time that we see EU versus NA and the different regions mixing in. But for now, we're assuming it's going to be region locked until that final event in December. But it's exciting because we at least now know what to look forward to. We know that every quarter we're going to be hit with a huge Masters event in every single region. Big money is going to be available for the pros along the way. And as you said, just Riot coming out and saying, we want this to rival League of Legends and in terms of how big the finals is going to be. For anyone who has ever watched a league finals, this is one of the greatest spectacles in all of esports, one of the biggest events of the year every year. So I think Valorant, if you're a fan right now, this year was a pretty good kickoff. It was a nice way for the grassroots community level events to kick off. But now we're getting serious. We're getting the serious funds and serious resources coming in 2021.
Yeah, Sliggy and Taylor, like, give us your thoughts on this. You've both come from a CS background, and CS, of course, is known for being oversaturated. We've got lots of players in terms of big tournament organizers. We have the major system that Valve run as well. When you first saw this format, was it something that you're initially very excited for, or do you have some reservations? Where do you guys stand?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
I'm pretty happy with this, man. Like, I don't think I could have wished for much better than this. The fact, like you were saying, they wanted to rival Worlds is, it's a steep task, but like I'm down for it. This sounds awesome if they think they can do it. But yeah, in terms of like how many tournaments and stuff there are, this looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff I'm excited about, and then some stuff I have reservations about. So getting a full year plan is like amazing coming from Counter Strike. Uh, not knowing what the hell you're doing in the next 2 weeks in Counter Strike is pretty nerve wracking sometimes. I think it'll be much better travel wise too once we do get back to LAN. Um, the only thing I have reservations about is that it's online mostly, which is unfortunate, but with COVID, everything is online. And I'm not sure there's going to be any direct invites, which is a little disappointing just because we had these ignition events and we had First Strike, and it's almost like they're kind of just turning those into content events to build the esport, which is okay, but we're kind of sick of online qualifiers at this point.
I believe that. One of the cool things I think you guys will note on this sheet, if we actually go back production to the one right before it, when I was looking at this, I thought it was awesome. Okay, so at the end of the year, you're looking at total points, right? It's almost like you're playing the circuit all year long. The top two in points are going to go in for North America, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Two from Brazil, one from Latin, one from Japan, two from Southeast Asia, and one from Korea. Then we also see there's going to be last chance qualifiers. That's where 4 additional teams are going to come from. But at the end of it all, like it's so key to be in the top 3 in your region. And I felt like that now sets a new benchmark for me moving forward, looking at all these tournaments. It's not like, okay, who is in the finals? It's who were the top 3? Who is going to be in that running for the top 2 points? And then who is going to be that third team that we expect to come out of the last chance qualifier? Taylor, is that how you broke it down when you first read this? Am I seeing it the right way?
Yeah, so we have maybe 16 orgs or 20 orgs in NA right now that are seriously competitive. So only having a few slots come out of that region might drive the orgs to pick up teams in other areas, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But right now the NA scene is thriving and the EU scene is doing pretty well. Um, and I like that competition a lot. So I'm also reserved about that. But yeah, I think being top 3 in the region has always been a goal of ours and a goal of most of these teams. So it's not really going to change anything for us personally, but the competition's going to get even more fierce than it already was.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if there's going to be a lot of players or maybe even teams moving continents to try to get a slot.
Yeah.
It depends how big things are going to be. But that was like one of my first thoughts with this. We didn't really see it too much in CS because of the nature of it. That there was of course like we know that there's a lot of money in Asia, in China specifically, and that in like the league scene and some other scenes where they have big esports like Overwatch and so on. It tends to be pretty crazy what they're able to offer. So I would be surprised if we don't see some like NA prospects that can't quite break that top 3 moving over. Is that something that you guys have been thinking about at all, like in terms of how this might all shape up?
Yeah, I think obviously the Brazilian teams have come to NA in Counter Strike, and then there's Counter Strike players that will go to China, like Fates and didn't Angel go for a while? I think too. I don't remember, but
I'm trying to remember now. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of players who have gone for like 3 months just to make $1 billion and then come back and not really do anything with a major team. But I think I I worry a little bit about the NA scene getting torn apart, just because I am biased towards how competitive it is, and the storylines that we have are really good. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I'm sure Riot has that kind of stuff in mind. So
Yeah. There seems to be room as well for other things too. It seems like there's room for in this calendar for a lot of other tournaments or possible
oh yeah,
circuits
for
that
sure.
could. So I do wonder if there's more sort of partnership opportunities. If maybe Riot will continue to run, but like will First Strike, as you say, continue to run as more of a content thing, but is still something where you can get that competition on the regular. So we'll see how they build out. Any final thoughts on this 2021 Valorant Champions Tour from you guys before we kind of move the discussion forward?
I think it's pretty good. I have a little concern of in terms of it's like the Oceanic scene has to play the NA scene, right? I'm not sure about how pings work for that, and in
Yeah,
terms
that's
of the
weird.
Europe side as well, I think we have India and Turkey. I think that's right. So our pings to them, it's going to be like 70 ping average games for
Wow.
some games, which is going to be interesting. That's like my main concern when it comes to that region. But everything else, I mean, it seems pretty fun.
And I think Waylon's on top of it, right? He's listening to the community feedback. They're still trying to solve for it. And I don't think they have the solution 100% nailed down right now, right away. But I like that Riot has already acknowledged it's in the back of our minds. It's something we're working on. And as soon as we figure out what's going on in the world of COVID, we can change our plans as well. For now, they're doing the best they can. But I'm with you, Sliggy. No one wants to see a 70 ping game because I think all of us, fans, commentators, you're just going to have to take the result with a grain of salt and say, is this really the right outcome, even if it's a best of 5?
Yeah, for sure. I can agree with that. Yeah. But I mean, hopefully the champions of the LAN as well. I mean, that would be amazing if we actually get to see that next year. So yeah, I'm holding up
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, it seemed like in their messaging, they're definitely going to, at the earliest possible point, try to get those international tournaments going. We're all hungry for it, so it's going to be good to hopefully get to see that sooner rather than later. Hopefully the world is able to solve things around COVID that can allow for stuff like that to happen. But with that said, we can move forward now into more of a first strike discussion. We have obviously but the main event finally, right around the corner, as I had mentioned, it's a huge, huge deal. This is the biggest event that we've had. It is unfortunately, we still are not able to do it on LAN, which is really unfortunate. So I guess the um, last big event, I guess in terms of scale to this would have been the Pot Flash Invitational, and that was we had everyone in studio, but that of course was not including the teams. But this is going to be pretty awesome. We've got a huge slog for a lot of teams that they've had to go through to actually qualify for this. This has gone across a couple months. It's actually I found it quite confusing at first. There's an awesome kind of flow chart. I'm not sure we have that to pull up, but there's a graphic that kind of explains how each team can make their way through. And Street Gamers had a couple qualifiers. UMG had a couple qualifiers. These are open systems that then were feeding teams through to this main event. So from the outset, with this crazy qualifier system, was this something that you guys were happy with? I know this was operated differently in NA and EU, so I'd love to hear the thoughts with regards to that. And I know that Sliggy, you've probably got a lot of thoughts, and I urge you not to censor yourself on this because I know you've got some stuff to talk about with this one.
There's the
Yeah.
flowchart. And Sliggy, real quick before you chime in, guys, this is the $100,000 tournament. North America's format was very different from Europe's. I'm still confused on how Europe broke down, but now, Sliggy, you can rant.
So yeah, the NA one's decent, man. Like best of threes everywhere. Like you're flowing in games. If anything, there's a bit too many games. That's like your one complaint. And then you have like the polar opposite in terms of EU, where to qualify you would only get one best of 3 game. So you'd go all the way to the top 8 before like the final 4 to qualify, and they were all best of 1s. So it was madness, and then there was some like weird seeding stuff going on. Yeah, complete polar opposites. I don't really know what happened. I much prefer how they handled the NA stuff. I don't want to rant too much because it is a bit wild, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure the best of 1s really should be in at this point, especially when like it wasn't too much of a time constraint, in my opinion.
I think best of 1s was the big difference if you're looking just across the format, but also I was going through and making my brackets today, and I realized, oh, Europe didn't even finish the seeding of the teams. It's just once you qualified, you were in this lump, right? And then so you came through qualifier 1, and then the second one spit out 4 more teams, and then they get sorted in a bracket of qualifier 1 versus qualifier 2. Sliggy, was there any seeding that isn't kind of seen on Wikipedia that I don't know about?
No, I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And maybe if I get in trouble, then it just happens. I woke up and they had the top 4 teams that had qualified in the first qualifier, and then they had the second qualifying teams. And then they just went to random.org and they just assigned them randomly, like pure RNG. So yeah, that kind of sums it all up.
Okay. little RNG and $100,000 finals featuring 8 teams. That seems pretty easy to execute. Makes sense to me. Going back to North America side though, Dan, I felt like they kind of did it right. You did it for the first time, a massive scale open bracket where everyone could come in, and then we whittled it down over a very long week to where we had our final 8 playing for just 4 spots. And I felt like NA, if this happens again in the future, it's got to be a pain in the ass every time if you're a top team like TSM tailored to have to play those early rounds. But is there a better way to do this if they do First Strike in 2021?
No, Nerd Street nailed it. I mean, they've been doing this since beta, and they work really closely with us and all the top teams to figure out what the best process is for vetoes. They do everything on time. UMG was new to the scene, and they fucked a lot of stuff up. We had seeding in the UMG Open qualifier that was done alphabetically for some reason, and they had like teams locked out for the. It says 128 teams, but it was actually like 90 or something, and teams are still wanting to play and try and get in, and they weren't letting them in. So yeah, UMG dropped the ball on their qualifier, and then Nerd Street did an extremely good job. But yeah, going through an open qualifier online is rough business for sure. I know there's not much they can do to avoid it, but there's just so much randomness online, especially in NA where you're having to play people in New York and LA, and ping is such a big deal in this game, that it makes it really hard to show your best strengths online. But God, I can't imagine having to play BO1s. That's so much worse. What a nightmare. I got a headache reading about stuff from you.
It was a couple of rough 2 weeks, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, we lost a few good teams, honestly, that I personally would put in the like top 8 of Europe. So it definitely had an effect, in my opinion.
Yeah, same. I'm sure, I know we're going to talk about upsets and stuff later, but it's definitely sad not to see some of the teams in the final event.
Well, I mean, in terms of what happened within the qualifiers, we can definitely take the moment to go into some of the things that we saw that were upsetting. Such as, C9 not making it through is one to kind of immediately throw out there. What were the thoughts around this? Because C9 definitely, I think from a lot of people's perspectives, and I've spoken to a lot of pros, leading into it, C9 were a team that we all thought were definitely top 4, or of top 4 caliber, and they seemed like they were getting better, and they were playing a style that felt pretty consistent, but they fell prey to the variance. What do you guys, put that down to?
Yeah, well, C9, when they beat us in the last event, they were looking really good and definitely playing like the best that they had played, the most structured they had played. I think they had some like comp issues, especially with the Sentinels changes going into this event, where they couldn't use Killjoy as effectively, and people just kind of understood how not to play into those new strengths that they had found. And I mean, Tyson is such an X factor, Tens is such an X factor for them that if he doesn't show up for one game, that can make such a difference in your bracket. So I think going into this, we knew that there would be some teams not showing up in these final 8. Because like I said, there's like 16 to 20 really solid teams in North America. So the fact that they're not there is not that crazy. I think some orgs didn't expect to make it. Like Gen G isn't here, which is upsetting.
Yeah.
But none of these teams, I wouldn't say they don't deserve to be here. They all won their games fair and square. So it's hard, man. When you whittle it down to 8 teams, you're going to lose some heavy hitters.
So we were kind of trying to look at the list of who didn't make it. So for everyone who was looking at that bracket, you saw Envy's in, Immortals is in, Renegades, TSM, 100 Thieves, T1, Sentinels, and FaZe. That's going to be our final 8 going in to the First Strike finals here for North America. Cloud9 Blue not making it was a big shocker because they just won a tournament, a week, 2 weeks before this. You said Gen G, who is a squad we are always seeing in our final 8 of almost every community ran tournament, and even the big ones put on by Riot leading up to this. Who else was missing, Taylor, that you think could be considered a top 8 team in North America?
I think people were surprised at how poorly Energy did, but Energy came into this without a solid fifth, and they're still kind of developing their comp and stuff. You could see them trying out some crazy stuff in this past weekend in like a smaller Nerd Street tournament, putting like their entry fraggers on Sentinels and stuff.
Right.
And I actually think I was watching Sam's stream last night, and he was talking about how they're going to try a triple duelist comp. I think something similar to what we've been running. So it's more just like a big name that you don't see here is Energy. But I think C9 and Genji are the biggest ones. And those two teams have been inconsistent, honestly. So it's not that weird that they're not here, but it is sad because, I know that any given Sunday they could win the whole thing. So
Do you think Andbox is a top 8 team? I know they didn't have Poach for the weekend. He had some stress issues, went to see a doctor, didn't play on the weekend. Warden, their coach, was filling in.
yeah, and they almost beat FaZe too. They kind of fell into a trap of playing not to lose when they got these big leads on FaZe. But obviously, I'm a huge fan of Android. Played with him, and I played with Ye before in Counter Strike, and I think Android can put that team on his back if he needs to. But overall, they seem to play really well together. So I think given a little more time, we could see them. But I'm not that shocked not to see them in this lineup. I think they just need more time. And Android's only been playing for a few months, so it's hard to switch over that quickly and
Right.
end up in the biggest event of the year.
Yeah, I think the whole not to lose thing. I know that we were talking about that before, and you had a few more points about that. So I'd love to hear sort of what else you saw from that perspective across these qualifiers that may have hurt teams.
Yeah, there was a ton of comebacks in these games where you could see the top teams really shine because they're this idea of playing not to lose is going to be really important for these younger teams to learn. And I actually think Liquid had a really good game versus Prodigy. It was your last game you played, I think, and they looked really good coming back on Ascent, and then you could see they just got timid at the end, and they were letting you guys bully them. And then it even went into split where they were not even trying to challenge you guys on your setups. I mean, you were doing these huge site hits, and you went like 9-3 on T-side split or something, and they didn't once try and challenge you on your default on your initial setups. You see a lot of that in NA too, where these teams, especially the younger teams, they're playing not to lose instead of trusting trusting like the win condition. And I don't mean like you have to be aggressive. You just need to be confident in whatever game plan or adjustment you come up with.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that quite a lot, especially in terms of teams that are heavily like CS pass based, like teams that have a lot of CS players.
100%.
They're very used to like just turtling up and just waiting for hits and stuff. Yeah, I don't believe that this game plays as simple as that. So yeah, you kind of want to see teams be a bit more proactive a lot of the times.
Yeah, I love that point. Sort of the market difference from CS in mentality there. I think that's very true. Do you guys also feel that as a quick comparison between CS and Valorant, this kind of open bracket system is even scarier in a game like this? Because my first thought is there's less rounds and more inherent variance, and mechanical ceiling is technically lower, so there's less separating your godlike tier one players in terms of just being able to shoot their way out of unexpected situations. So it feels like it comes down a lot more to a couple things. One, just having a very solid core game and core game plan that you can apply to anything, as well as having the ability to have enough in your playbook that you can rely on so you can adapt on the fly. Because it feels like you could just run into a bunch of youngsters that could definitely win any best of one in this game. Like it feels much more threatening to me from as a spectator. But how does it feel as someone as people that are coaching teams trying to avoid the dangers of the variance in this game?
Yeah, it's one of those things where like if you can lose both pistols and then they could have something completely different that you've never seen before, like a Sage doing some crazy walls that like hasn't been seen in like top competitive play before, and like that alone could potentially just win them the game just off that. So yeah, that's when like the best of ones are. I'm just like shitting myself because I'm just like, this is like I know this can happen, and like when you come across stuff that you haven't seen this in the game, you're just like, it's so hard to just deal with it there and then. So yeah, it's like what you said. There's loads of different variants that can just spring up, and then the fact that this MR12 pistols just have a lot more weight behind them. So yeah, there's it's just a lot of things that can go wrong to make you lose the map in this game.
Looking purely at this NA bracket, can we talk about the surprises here? Because I was surprised to see Immortals being retooled, already able to finish in the top 8. I was surprised. I think Taylor, you might have been as well, by Renegades, who you'll be matching up against in that first round. Can you talk to me about these teams? Let's start with Renegades, because um, I have my good buddy Sideshow from the Overwatch League. He does a lot of analytical content as well, and he was mentioning that Renegades isn't even in his top 8 right now. That it was a squad that he just hasn't seen enough. They had wins over Slimy Boogermen. Then they beat TSM on Split. But Taylor, what should we know about this squad coming in?
Renegades is kind of interesting because their playstyle is a lot different than how other people play. I think that will eventually be a detriment for them. You could see even in our games, they took us a little bit by surprise on Split, and it's mostly because on Split we always had trouble fighting just these huge pops, and that's all they do is huge pops. So,
Okay.
but we've played them enough in scrims to know that they can be competitive. So we kind of knew going in that they could end up in this top 8. It's not surprising to see them here. I think Immortals is a little more surprising, especially after selling their 2 strongest players. But yeah, I think Renegades has a style. Like I said, it's going to be a detriment to them eventually because it's like super structured, and it's kind of like Furia. How when Furia first came on the scene, they were like really hard to read, especially with how aggressive Art was. But once you kind of figured out how to play against them, if you got them on the right map, you could shut them down. And Furia has since adjusted and changed their game plan a lot. But originally, they kind of remind me of that team. A lot of good chemistry on the team too, so that's hard to beat. And like Sliggy said, you only have like 1 or 2 rounds to adjust, especially if you lose pistol, you're fucked. I don't know if I can curse on here,
You're
but
good.
Hey
there's
man,
no
we're already in there.
okay.
It's all good.
There's no better word for it than fucked, because with MR12 and losing both pistols, that's like 4 to 6 rounds. I mean, that's 30% of your game is just gone to RNG basically. So it's really hard against aggressive teams sometimes, especially confident teams online who are, in their home and they feel comfortable. So
Right. And then that Immortal squad now has Shanks on the lineup. I've heard a lot of rumors, a lot of discussion on Twitter, on Reddit as well. Is he in the starting lineup? Is he not? What's the expectations for Immortals? Because they're facing off against Envy, who kind of dominated that first qualifier. They 3-0'd the final over 100 Thieves. They kind of cruised their way through the bracket. Envy's coming in with the #1 seed in North America.
yeah, so Immortals took a map off us too. Shanks, I don't think will be on their lineup because he's trying out for Energy right now. He played with them yesterday. But to me, they're not really a threat. We'll see how they do against Envy. I'm interested to see if they change their game plan at all. But again, it's just like one of those chemistry teams. They seem to get along well. And in Counter-Strike, when I would do analysis and coaching, it would be like a lot more structured than in this game. In this game, I push communication, and I think communication is like the biggest thing in this game. And I almost feel like I'm not doing enough work sometimes when I'm not coming up with like all these crazy plans and writing. Like I used to write 70 pages of notes going into an event for a CS tournament. And then in this game, we just watch, we come up with a game plan and we try and stick to it. But being flexible is the most important thing. So I think a lot of these teams will suffer when their structure runs out, when they only have a few things to fall back on.
It seemed kind of like that was T1's issue to begin with in the very, very beginning. But Yeah, Connor, are you echoing some of these sentiments from Taylor there?
Yeah, pretty much. I was going to say I was actually quite impressed with the variety that I saw in terms of like what the teams are bringing in NA. It was very like one dimensional at the beginning, and then now, like you said, there was just a lot of like Renegades had a completely different style that is more, I don't know, it's more similar to like the EU Korean scene in terms of like how they pop. So yeah, I was just impressed in general just to see teams actually kind of moving away from the classic NA kind of style that we saw. And I do feel like the matchups work quite well. Like Renegade's style of play definitely works well against like the kind of Cloud9s and just certain teams like that. So yeah, I was just interested to see how kind of the improvement and how the teams are just handling it differently.
Sliggy, as a quote unquote outsider, so someone coming from the EU watching some of the NA games, what first round matchup do you think is going to be the closest here as you look at the four?
Feel
For
free to
sure.
talk shit about us. If you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to do that most of the time. Yeah, T1 100 Thieves, I think, in my opinion, is going to be the closest. I didn't see, I mean, I saw a good amount of 100 Thieves, so I'm not sure how they're going to be going in. I definitely saw a giant improvement in terms of just like Hiko individually. But yeah, I think 100 Thieves T1 is going to be quite interesting. I saw like big progression from them. Like every single game, I carried on seeing a lot of progression. So yeah, I liked what I saw from them. I do think I do think TSM might struggle against the Renegade style play, but if you watch enough demos, I agree you can easily counter it. So I think if you come in with a good game plan, you should be fine. If they keep the same style of play, I'm
No
not
pressure
sure.
tailored.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
pressure. I'm not sure how they're going to go into it. You can definitely do, like Dad was saying, have a good game plan against it, and you'll be fine. So yeah, it's kind of all on your shoulders, dude.
Yeah, appreciate it. No pressure.
Which side is bracket scarier, actually? Oh, sorry to interrupt you, Taylor, if you had a point there.
No, I was just gonna say that I really like this bracket for us, just because 100 Thieves, T1 Sentinels all have to knock each other out, and I don't want to play any of them until the finals, honestly. Sentinels has a challenge with FaZe, just because FaZe is like they have some insane mechanics on that team. But I don't think they'll struggle with them. And then 100 Thieves T1 matching up against each other is like perfect. I love that they have to knock each other out.
The iBuy Powerball. It's gonna
Yeah,
be great.
exactly. So those two teams play kind of similarly. They play like a very Counter-Strike-y style. So those are probably gonna be some long games to watch, but they should be entertaining. And then I feel pretty comfortable against everyone on our side of the bracket, even Envy. Our team and Envy, we play each other quite a bit, and they're not as scary to us as I think they are to other teams, just because we're more comfortable against those guys. I think just personality-wise, we're more comfortable against them. They're not as like maybe confident against us, but they are a scary team. So honestly, any of these teams could win it, especially with single elim, which is stupid, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are you guys annoyed that after doing all of these qualifiers, at least in NA, it makes sense to me because we actually came in with seeds 1 to 8. So it's like you can do a single elimination bracket, and in theory, we have properly seeded it. Sliggy, you guys have a freaking random bracket for EU. So is it frustrating knowing that it's best of 3, but it's going to be one and done?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, I think we're just so pumped that we get best of 3s. We're just like,
Okay.
oh, we'll take it. Like, as long as it's not best of 1, sure, we'll take it. Single limb, yeah, for sure, double limb would be way better. But it's like it's gonna be like our second best of 3 in First Strike. So we're kind of, I mean, we're kind of just we're taking that win, man.
Riot's doing it right. If you treat them poorly early on, give them just a little carrot and they'll be happy. All right. We were spoiled here in NA. Makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sliggy, watching our VODs, what's the biggest difference from EU to NA in your opinion? How would you describe NA's playstyle at the moment?
I do think it is less structured. It's a lot of more. It more relies on individual plays. Like I think Cloud9 is like the best like sum up you can do of just these. Like sure, it makes sense to have tens like your win
Condition.
yeah, win condition being tens popping off, but like because he does it a lot of the times, but at the same time it's just not reliable. I think I see a lot of Reyna, and that's like my problem with Reyna is you can have it on the best player, but it's even if that player just isn't popping off, it can't bring much to the table other than the 2 flashes. So I do think there's a bit less structure in NA, but I will also say that it would definitely, like, I'm judging that from like the last month, but if I look at First Strike, it's definitely a giant improvement from that. Every team did get a lot more structured. I think FaZe Clan is probably the best example I could use, where I saw them in the FaZe Clan Invitational, and they were they weren't the best. Like, they weren't the best, and then I see them
Still
a month.
learning.
Yeah, exactly. And then I see them a month later, and they look like a completely different team. Like, they actually look unreal. So it's definitely something that I'm seeing. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to sum. I can't really sum up the whole of NA anymore. Like, before I could, it would be easy to
Okay.
sum up the whole of NA. The whole play style was really similar. But now I think every team has its own kind of identity, different play styles. So I feel it's all kind of just it's all over the place now, which is good though. It kind of shows that the game's balanced, the game's in a good place, and that all of these play styles can work, and some of them work well against other teams.
Yeah, you guys suck too, man.
Oh man, it's been a really, like, the evolution has been super interesting. I think, just as a general point, this game is been so fun to watch, just because because of the lack of tournaments that we have. Is actually great, because when a tournament rolls around, teams are hiding stuff from each other. The meta's shifted without you as a viewer really being party to that necessarily. Whilst teams are working hard to figure out what's the next best thing to deal with what's been working. And we have this, rivalries actually mean something. Like, they really, I mean, not to say that they don't mean anything in CS, but it doesn't feel like there is as much value and as much intrigue within the rivalries. So I've been really enjoying sort of how fast the meta's moving, because it makes it, I don't know, it just, everything feels a bit more punchy right now, which I love completely. And just as, moving that general point into EU's also a scene that's seen a lot of development. Initially, I feel like it was just kind of, Sliggy, I guess it's just you guys and G2 to begin with, and FPX kind of, it came up, and now it seems like we're starting to get a lot of other teams coming up. But I think for most people that have been loosely following EU, they're going to be thinking about G2, Liquid, and FPX, and maybe NIP mostly. Like, these are the rosters that we've seen a lot of. But we've got 8 teams here. So can you run us through some of these teams that have impressed you? Players that have impressed you, maybe some, especially the lesser known names, people that we should be thinking about as we look at these top 8 qualified teams in the EU bracket.
Sure. So yeah, I'll quickly, like, G2, obviously everyone knows who they are. They've been winning everything in Europe. Liquid, us, we've just been underperforming in Europe. And then FPX, probably like your second best in terms of rankings at the moment. The kind of teams that they're coming up with a good amount of different stuff. They're always kind of like pushing the boundaries and coming up with cool stuff. And then the lesser known teams, you have Summon FC. They've just been playing like every tournament. They've been honestly consistently winning. Against every game. You could definitely argue that some of their tournaments don't have the highest skill, but you can only beat like what's in front of you, right? So they've been doing really good. They've been coming up with some cool stuff as well. But I've been watching a few of their demos. They look pretty drilled. Obviously, they don't have an actual org yet. I think that's the main talking point about Europe in general. Is there's like 6 top orgs maybe. So yeah,
Okay.
that's something that's a bit. I don't know. It sucks a bit at the moment, but that it is what it is, right? No Penky. These guys are like, they're like, you know, when that FaZe team got announced in CS, and it was just like they picked one from each region. Like, this guy's the best in this country.
Yep.
That's No Penky. Basically, they have a sick team. This CNED guy. Basically, in America, in NA, you've got like Wardell. You've got those kind of jet operator players that can just dominate a game. We don't have that in Europe. There's no one that can use like the operator jet as well as anyone in NA. This CNED guy is like the closest we have to that. We have a few like passive guys, but they're not the same. Auglis, so that is they were Prodigy, which people will recognize Happy, and potentially people will recognize Hoodie. He played for Havu, I think it was, in CSGO.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Yeah.
they've actually been cracking loads for like a month. And then Purple Cobra is kind of like an underdog team. These guys, I haven't watched too much of them. 2 UK guys, 2 Frenchies. So yeah, I haven't watched too much, but they look pretty drilled, pretty structured. I literally, they're probably the one team that I haven't seen too much of, so I can't comment. And then Team Heretics are like the sleeper team that are just sick. They're so good. They're like the one team that if you talk about Europe, you're always like they just for some reason you forget about them, but like honestly they're in like the top 5 in my opinion in terms of Europe. They're super strong. They've been practicing a lot. They have a unique style of play. Yeah, they're definitely one to watch out for.
That looks like a good Counter-Strike lineup, honestly.
No,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
just saying,
Perfect.
yeah, I was gonna say that too.
No offense, Dan or Sliggy, but historically, I'm told that the
I had
UK
the
sucks
same
at
fucking question.
esports. Is this the best esport for UK players? Like, I feel like there's a lot of British flags there.
Yeah, what's the difference between UK Valorant, UK CS?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure. It maybe I kind of so at least with I can talk for my guys at least. I kind of handpicked them and Ardis as well. I know he's claiming the Latvian flag, but like we also claim as UK.
He's
It's so like I handpicked them in terms of the ones that I felt like could kind of break out from the dregs of the UK scene. So I can definitely talk for those guys. I know individually they all have a lot of potential. They just never really pushed themselves or had anyone with like any kind of knowledge of how a team should work. That's kind of what I was hoping to bring to them. In terms of the other guys, I know Boaster's pretty much just single-handedly making sure that the Summon FC team's kind of the same as what we're doing. I don't know. There seems to be a lot of talent, honestly. I think it's like, yeah, in theory, on paper, there isn't too much difference. I think it's just people are just really motivated to try and get out, and like 5 years of just achieving nothing in CS can get you, man. So I think the players have finally snapped and actually like playing loads.
And
Yeah.
are most of these teams speaking English as their main comms? Sliggy, like when you're setting up scrims, how many different languages are you dealing with? Is it all
I'm pretty
English-speaking teams?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident for all of these teams. They all speak English. I mean, I'm pretty confident that's right. I know. Yeah, no, I think that is right. Yeah, I think they all are.
That's actually pretty awesome. It's actually a funny one too because I remember we had Soulcast on the podcast and the live show, and he's somebody that I was asked this question directly. I'm like, dude, what's going on here? Because we've got this crazy situation where now suddenly like a bunch of UK players that played CS, you had no success there, and now they've given the opportunity and they're succeeding and running with it and everything's good to go. So what's the deal with UK CS? And he said, frankly, that UK CS was a trap, and there's a lot to that. I think culturally, there was a lot of issues, and I think that's what Valorant has given to a lot of people is this fresh start where there isn't an established elite inherent to any nation yet, and there's these systems aren't in place as to who gets to kind of these gatekeepers who get to say you get to come into this team, or I'll connect you with this person. Like that's all just gone. So you get someone like Sliggy who can come along and has the mind, has the authority to actually pick people, and you can recreate the culture and learn from your mistakes. That's one of the things I love most about Valorant is that it gets to improve upon all of the mistakes, or has the opportunity to improve upon all the mistakes that were there in CS that were hurting the competitive integrity in general of different scenes, or like whatever it is. I think there's so many lessons from CS, and so I'm really happy to see that the UK players are going to get hopefully this because this transformation happened in North America in CS as well. Where initially there was so many memes around North American CS that if you put NA in front of as a prefix in front of anything like NA smoke, NA flash, NA this or that, it means that it's terrible, right? And it was a community of players in CS that was completely dominated by just a one sort of trick. Just we're all about mechanics. We're all about playing aggressively. We don't have as much structure or tactical depth, all this kind of stuff. But then it just took one or two really good teams like Team Liquid to come along and just show everybody how that's done and become leaders of the culture. And that changed everything. And that slowly permeated down to all the teams below them. And then everybody benefited from it. So I'm hoping that that's what we're seeing here for UKCS. So Liquid get to fly the flag and to set the culture, I hope. And sounds like you guys are doing a good job right now, Connor. Although you did say, and I want to ask you about this, you feel like you're underperforming right now. So what do you put that underperformance to exactly?
I don't want to say format again. I mean, a lot of times we lost to best of ones. But it was just our own mistakes, honestly. So it was just us being a bit crap. We always in practice we would look really good, and then when it came to officials, we would just look nothing like we look in practice. So yeah, there was a few underlying issues that we had to talk about, which I think we've now overcome. So yeah, it was mainly just our own performances and officials that was like lacking. We definitely had the potential, but then when it came to when it came to officials, it just wasn't there. But yeah, hopefully we've turned a new page.
So I have a quick. Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead, Dan. Go.
I was gonna say I have a quick question for Taylor before we go to brackets, but now I want to hear what you want to say as well, Chris.
I was going to say, before the bracket, I want to know who is not in the bracket that should be. I think we listed him earlier, NIP, but who else is missing on this list?
Giants, I guess. Not Giants. Sorry. Guild. Team Guild. Yeah, they are. Dude, there's so much that went behind it all with like because they got defaulted out for using a bugged wall, which apparently is bugged. I didn't realize it was bugged. It's where you use like a killjoy turret and then use a wall on top. But then this opened. I mean, it was wild. Then you had everything that was like everyone was claiming everything was a bug. Like we were talking to we had to go to the admins between every single game, and I would like send them like a molly, and if the molly goes out of the map, that counts as a bug, so you can't use that. So like the molly on Ascent where it goes into, say you're under on A.
Yep.
Under heaven.
Yeah, under heaven, you just throw a molly into like the little crack there, and it gets the people above. You can't use that. Like any molly that's outside, any wall, any sage wall that goes through a wall, you like counts as a bugged wall. And I was like, guys, this is wild. Like, what's going on here? Like, you couldn't use the killjoy ult on top of stuff. And so, like, 30 minutes before our game, I had to just sit on a server with like our killjoy just saying, you can't use this, you can't use this, you can't use this. And it just opened the floodgates of just. It was pure madness of what counts as a bug and what doesn't. And yeah, it was just a shit show, honestly. So I feel sorry that they got defaulted out for a bug that obviously they didn't realize it was a bug.
Against G2 in a game that a lot of people said they were going to win, right?
Oh, dude, they look better. They look better than them. So yeah, I don't know. They in my opinion, they deserve that win. But yeah, I mean, if it's literally is not meant to be in the game and it's technically a bug, then I guess then that's fair enough.
That was in the first qualifier, though. Did they have a second chance?
Yeah, they had a second chance. They lost the best of one to someone that I can't remember. There were so many best of ones that I just can't remember. But they did lose a best of one. Potentially it was Noel Penke. Was it Noel Penke? Yeah.
There we go.
So that's why they're in.
But I think if you click on that game, I'm pretty sure they lost. I think Noel Penke, yeah. So Guild won both pistols. So in my opinion, like that's a complete fair loss. Like you win both pistols, you just like, and you still lose. Like you just have to lose
on the
game.
beta map. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Noel Penke are a good team as well. Like that's the superstars, one from each country kind of team. So they're a really good team. But yeah, best of threes. Maybe that's a different game. But yeah.
What a shit comp they have on Haven.
Yeah, you wanna
they gotta work on
expand on that one.
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
No, I'm good. It's just like who's doing anything in that comp right there? Everyone's sitting back while they're hitting a site. We got a Sova, Raze, Cypher, Omen, and Breach. It would rely heavily on ults, I think. So if you can't string rounds together, you're going to get momentum screwed, which looks like what happened on the first half.
Yeah, do you agree with that, Connor?
Yeah, you definitely have to have you have to have a pretty structured style of play to make that comp work, I believe. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, let's go a bit broader. Let's look at the brackets specifically for this EU portion of the main event for First Strike. And obviously, I think you set the stage pretty nicely there, Connor, in terms of the teams, who we're missing, and what we can maybe look to expect from some of these teams and players. What's your first take on this bracket? Because I know that you had some gripes with some, how the seeding was for some of the qualifiers and stuff, but how does the bracket look? Does it look good to you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit bummed out because obviously Heretics was, in my opinion, by far the best out of the bottom four, and the randomizer.org, random.org, whatever it was, decided to just wreck us. That's just
That's so stupid.
So yeah, I mean that I'm not too bothered about. Like you have to beat everyone, right? But then I do think that Summon FC got a very easy route to qualify for this. They get a very easy route now. I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be here at all, because they do. I'm just saying
Right.
I'd like them to get tested a little bit. But yeah, I do think that the top side is pretty heavy stacked.
It's pretty stacked, man.
I was gonna say you have the worst bracket possible here. I mean, the only way it could get worse is if you played Fun Plus or G2 in the second round, or I guess you'll have to if this one would play out by normal people's seeds. But can we talk about Heretics to start with? Because you said this is the top team in the group from the second qualifier. We have a guy like Taimu from Meow Mode who said that this is the best team in the EU in his mind after playing them recently. So, what should fans know about Heretics coming into that matchup?
They're just individually really sick, and they're pretty. Dude, they play a Sage still on every map, and
Yeah.
it's wild. But like again, this is another thing where like I need them to talk to the admins, because it's like I watched some of their demos and I was like, technically that's like 10 bugged walls in like 12 rounds. Like where I need some kind of line to be drawn. But in terms of like how they play, they're so sick. That individually they're really sick. They have a good play style. They kind of understand their reactive stuff's really good. Yeah, they're just a top team, man. They're just a really top team that I think a lot of people in Europe have probably been sleeping on.
Are they the only ones still running Sage on every map? It's like Sage and Sova on every map, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know if there's maybe some other teams, but they're the only ones that I know of. But yeah, they have some inventive walls for sure.
It's still big in Asia, running Sage on a lot of maps.
Yeah, that's true. It is true. Yeah. But no, these guys are sick. This Nisao guy is a monster, like an absolute monster. So yeah, individually they're definitely scary. But so I personally class them as like one of the top teams. So we'll see. I think our game against them is gonna be sick, man. It's gonna be good. I'm actually pretty excited for it.
And if you win that, in theory, you're playing against G2.
If we win that, we most likely play G2.
And how has that matchup gone? Like, what's the expectations in the current meta now?
I think we'll beat G2. Like, I think no matter who wins out of us and Heretics, I think they'll beat G2 personally. But it kind of depends, because G2 are like that team that if they all decide to play as well as they can, they should beat everyone. But I don't think that's a good. I don't know, percentage-wise, I think either us or Heretics should be beating them. But we'll see. It's one of those things where they're all individually G2 are individually sick, man. So they could just all pop off.
Do you think G2 have been in any way showing signs of any weakness or deterioration, or do you feel like they're still getting better?
For sure. Like, I don't mind flaming them. They've definitely been sleeping. They haven't been practicing enough. I watched some of their demos. They're bringing nothing new to the table. Like, they came in very relaxed to this event. Very relaxed. I do believe they definitely have been working a little bit now. But I definitely imagine they took some kind of time off before this event. I watched that guild game. And yeah, you can't expect to win games bringing like what they brought to the table there. So yeah.
Have you caught any G2 tailored?
Yeah, even I can see that they're falling off a bit, but they were never really ones to add new stuff. You know, they kind of relied pretty heavily on their chemistry and their background in CS. So it's not that surprising to me that these other teams would be stepping up and beating them, especially going into a tournament with BO1s. So from what I've seen of Liquid and Heretics, I think either of them could beat G2 any day of the week.
Interesting. All right. Well, there's a prediction I think a lot of people perhaps wouldn't have expected to hear who are not in the know. So there's that. I believe I interrupted you, Chris. What did you have something for us?
If you're a gambler, make sure you listen to the show every single week. Make sure you listen to these coaches because they know their stuff. I was going to say on the other half of the bracket, it feels like Angel and the Fun Plus Phoenix crew have just a straight shot to the finals. Sliggy, do you agree with that? Like, who's the threat for them to kick them out of the bracket before grand finals?
I guess Summon FC. I don't see it happening. I think maybe they can take like a map off them or something, but I think they'll be absolutely fine. I think they should probably cruise it, honestly.
Angel's happy right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And Taylor, we kind of looked at Fun Plus Phoenix and we talked with Angel on our last show. it seems they're kind of approaching the game way different from anyone in NA, even a lot of the teams in EU. He's just trying to constantly break the game or be the most efficient you possibly can with alt orbs, character selection, compositions, utility usage, all of that. So, have you been watching this team? For fans who haven't seen this squad in EU, what can they take away by watching that bottom half of the bracket?
Well, I think staying ahead of the meta is really important in this game with how big the character changes are. That's one thing we've learned is to not fear running these crazy comps. When we think a comp is going to work, we work really hard on making sure the positioning is good and stuff. So we really wanted to make a statement with this triple duelist or double duelist and support comp with Breach. Um, and I think you'll see a lot more of that kind of stuff with Sky being added too. I think Sky is going to be really fucking good on one map specifically, which I don't want to mention. But I think she's going to be really strong on one map in replacement for an agent that,
Icebox.
yeah. So I think like staying ahead of the meta has always been our goal. And we were the first ones not to run Sage on certain maps, and we won events with it. And I think we made a bit of a statement winning this last qualifier too with the triple duelist thing, even though it was just for seeding. But I think any team that's willing to take risks like that, it's going to pay off for them. As long as they put the effort in to make sure it's the correct route.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think, yeah, it's the whole thing with Icebox and Sky. We'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. But do we have? I guess we kind of did predictions, more or less, kind of. But let's do them more explicitly here. So for the NA bracket, I think who do we have? Obviously, TSM getting to the finals there. I guess I feel like I have to say that. Otherwise, Taylor may hate me forever. So, but but
He's
one
been
thing
on the
that's
show. We want him back in the future. TSM for sure.
Well, so this is something that's really sick, right? TSM and Sentinels. You guys have this is like the rivalry, the first rivalry that I think really enamored so many people as they started watching Valorant. It's the first big rivalry of NA. You guys haven't played for like almost 4 months or something.
Yeah, it's
It's
been a
in the
while.
competition. That's insane to think about. And the ways in which that's happened is crazy. But you guys could make a run into that grand final against each other, which I think people would be super stoked about. But for that to happen, Sentinels would have to get past 100 Thieves and T1, which are both teams that feel like unknown quantities because they've both been improving so much. So, what are our predictions for the grand finals here? What do our minds say? What do our hearts say? I'm gonna say TSM Sentinels because I'm gonna like really lean into that. I want that rematch. But
Yeah, I think Riot is somewhere in a back room trying to figure out how to make that happen as best as possible. Because viewership wise, I think that would be the best. I messaged Dapper the other day, and I was like, "You guys better show up. We want to see you in the finals." So
That's awesome.
that would be that's definitely what my heart wants. But that lower bracket is tough, man. I mean, the whole brackets is hard.
Mhm.
Renegades is a challenge. Envy is going to be a challenge. So I don't know. Any of these teams could win, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I literally think any of these teams could win. I don't know if I had to go with who I think is probably going to win. I would say that maybe Sentinels, but I don't know, that's me basing a lot of stuff from like a month ago because they didn't actually
Right.
look, in my opinion, they didn't look super strong in First Strike. But I know, in my opinion, I think they were saving stuff because I didn't see too much. I saw a bit that was new, but I didn't see too much that was new.
Yeah, they didn't get tested really either.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not too sure. This one's hard. I don't think I saw enough from Sentinels to know if they're gonna completely smash this or not. But yeah, it's between TSM, Envy, and Sentinels, I think.
Are 100 Thieves the bigger threat than FaZe to Sentinels? Because 100 Thieves beat them in the previous qualifier, right? I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, so Sentinels has always struggled against teams that don't give us problems. So like Genji and FaZe has always been easy for us, but for some reason Sentinels struggles against those teams. And then Sentinels crushes teams that give us trouble. So like C9 and Renegades and stuff. And I honestly think it's just the mentality of people going into a Sentinels match rather than anything they're doing specifically. But I don't know. 100 Thieves. We played really poorly against them, and we handed them the match that they won against us for sure. So uh, I think they still have more work to do. They definitely look like they've improved a ton. They're putting the effort in, and I think I trust any team with Nick on it. I'm a huge fan of Nitro, so.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, T1 is going to be a struggle. I think they should beat T1, but then I really think Sentinels will come out of this bracket. They just have the chemistry and the history together to make it through to a final.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have an easy time at all. I really think like I was
No.
well impressed with FaZe, like well impressed with FaZe, and like near the end of so last week. I think it was last week. There, yeah. So I don't know. I think they're gonna have a rough time, but I think they should be fine if they play their normal game, get into the final. But I do think the FaZe Sentinels game is gonna be pretty close. I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, with that said, let's jump into, because I think actually, Chris, we didn't get your what's your
Whew.
vision of the grand finals here? Where's your prediction?
So sadly, I think it's going to be Envy over TSM in that second semifinal, just to disagree with everyone else on the
Okay.
show.
I'm leaving.
And then I think that 100 Thieves Sentinels is a really good matchup in that second round. And I think that FaZe, if they had a different matchup than Sentinels to kick off the quarterfinals, could have been a threat because they're just an explosive team that is just overly aggressive. And I'm sure you can prep for it, but not always for some of the headshots that are coming out of Corey's entries. I think it's going to be Sentinels in the bottom half of the bracket. I think that going best of threes and then eventually a best of five, if we see that, is really going to be in their favor. I think Sentinels takes the tournament.
All right. Okay. I like it. I like it. Okay. With that said, time to do the same thing, but let's do it for the EU bracket. I know that Sliggy might have us at a slight disadvantage here, having more experience with all of the teams in this one, but this bracket itself is insane. So I feel like that it's quite difficult to predict, but I'm going to kick things off here. So I'm going to say that Liquid are going to take this. Boom, I did it. And it's going to be them versus FPX. I feel like it's a pretty reasonable grand final right there.
It's what the people want.
It's what the people want. And
It's
maybe this
definitely
is the undoing of G2 as well, but possibly. And maybe we can predict that. I feel like that's kind of the feeling in the room right now.
yeah, maybe it's one of it's one of those ones where I think a lot of these teams can. Well, it's not like the NA because I don't think some of these teams can win it honestly. But I mean, FPX are in the final. I'm pretty confident, and then our stuff's going to be high. I think if we beat Heretics, we win. I do feel like in my mind that's kind of the final in a sense of like I think that's our hardest opponents. And then obviously FPX will be quite. I mean, it's just a hard route in general. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to put us, but I kind of see FPX just having the easiest route to the final for sure.
Yeah, I think I could have drawn a better bracket. I don't even know who three of these teams are. So, um, I mean, obviously, Liquid FPX should be in the final, but I'm rooting for Purple Cobras just because the dodgeball memes would be fantastic.
Absolutely. I'm here for the memes. I think without a doubt we're going to see Angel and Crew in the finals in the bottom half of the bracket, but I can't even tell you what's going to happen with the top half. Especially like I know G2 is downward trending, but this is also the biggest event of the year. You know that maybe we're not seeing them on all the time. Do they have fake accounts? Are they putting in time just watching game film? I don't think you're going to see them just show up to this event and not try or not be able to perform at least 90-95%. And I think G2, if they get the maps they want in a best of three, is still dangerous, whether it's Heretics or Liquid in that second round.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
They're one of those teams that if they all show up, man, they are. I mean, they can win it, like for sure, they can easily win it. It's just one of those teams that they just have to all be popping. And personally, as of late, I haven't seen them all popping. So
I think Sliggy and I can buffer for each other too with a single elim and just blame that if either of us are not in the
Yeah, that's
finals.
true.
All right. Well, I feel like we've got a pretty good picture of everybody, where everyone stands on all of this. Any final thoughts on the EU bracket and the predictions before we move things forward? Or are we good here? Sounds like we're pretty good.
I think we're
Are
good.
Heretics a top three team? Will they prove their top three team if they're able to get to the finals in this event?
I think if they beat us, they beat G2. So yeah, I guess so. It kind of depends on our game. I mean, it's so hard at the moment because none of these teams play each other. So I'm kind of only going off like what some of the prac people say, and like some of the official demos that I watch. So it's really hard to know how some of these teams are going to match up. So it's a lot of guesswork, honestly.
Understood. Must tune in
Okay.
then.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, the game's gonna be popping straight away. So you guys out there in the interwebs.
Another factor is that I think a lot of people's comps and the way they play have to change too. This Sentinels adjustment, which we haven't really talked about. So I don't know, Sliggy, like if you're still watching older demos or just trying to take notes from how you're scrimming in practice and stuff, but so many comps in NA have changed, including ours. I mean, ours have changed completely. So
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that's just the thing with this game now, isn't it? Just every 2 months, like it all
yeah,
changes. So it's like because at the beginning, when people used to ask me like who was better at like NA EU, I could easily say like NA were better. Then Breach got buffed. Then EU were better. Like it literally changes like every 2 months. It's so hard to actually keep up at the top. So yeah, no, I agree. It's gonna be interesting to see if because like Sky's allowed in this tournament as well. It's gonna be interesting to see if teams are using that because it's super strong.
yeah.
It's super, super strong. So we'll see.
Okay, well, with that said, let's move on and just highlight some of our favorite storylines going into this First Strike main event. Things that we think are going to be just so exciting to follow. I'll start with you, Chris.
I think just seeing the return of Sentinels TSM, if that happens, I think that would be the best way to finish 2020 for me. That's where we kind of started. That's where peak Valorant was for me when we were doing all the Ignition Series events. There's been a lot of changes in the top three, and I hate that. I love consistency. I love seeing the top dogs. So if we can go back and finish the way we started, I think that's the number one storyline that can come out of it. If you're looking at just like an awesome way to kick off the tournament, though, 100 Thieves versus T1, seeing like all 5 of the iBuyPower guys in the same game is going to be awesome. Just seeing Steel match up against Dazed in the in-game leader challenges, that'll be fun. I think watching Envy versus TSM in the second round could be awesome. And then FaZe Clan, are they able to just catch people off guard? Are they able to prove that NA can still win with just raw talent and gun skill and blazing fast entries versus a slow-paced team like T1 that would historically try and make and execute with 33 seconds left on the clock? So I think those are kind of my NA storylines to watch. And then, of course, in EU, just what's going to happen with that top half of the bracket. Sliggy and friends are going to have quite the fun weekend.
Absolutely. Right. So I'm going to pick you next then, Sliggy. What are your favorite storylines or biggest points for people to follow going through this next week of Valorant?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably just going to go. I mean, hopefully we get to see us against G2. I think that's going to be awesome. I think the Liquid G2 kind of rivalry. I know that everyone in our team wants to beat Ardis because obviously Ardis left us in Fish 1-2-3, left us out to hang. So yeah, I think for me that's personally like the one that we're all pumped for. So yeah, hopefully that happens. And then in terms of NA, I don't know. As long as Sentinels get to the final and plays either TSM or Envy, I'll be pretty happy for that. I do think, like you said, the T100 Thieves. I said at the beginning, I think that's going to be the closest game. I think that's going to be a sick game. I actually don't know who takes that. Still made me predict the other day, like when I was streaming. So I made sure that I said T1 just to annoy him. I'm not sure if I actually believe that. But yeah, I think that like in terms of rivalry and seeing all the iBuyPower guys back is just, I don't know, that's awesome. So yeah, I think they're kind of like the main storylines. I think there's a little bit of in EU. I think there's a little bit of rivalry between the Summon FC and FPX, or at least that's what Boaster's trying to do. Like Boaster just messages Angel like every single day, just being like, "Don't sleep on me," or like, "I'm gonna beat you" and stuff like that. So maybe there's something to watch out there. I don't know. I think they could maybe surprise them, or at least give them a good game. So maybe that's something else to watch out for. But yeah, I think that's most of the main storylines that I can think of.
What about you, Taylor? What are the standouts for you?
Yeah, obviously the us for Sentinels is a big one. I think the coolest thing for me going into this is like these redemption stories for the iBuyPower guys, showing that they can still compete at a top level, and how disappointing it is that that they couldn't do it in Counter Strike just because of some dumb mistake they made 5 years ago now. So that's really cool to see. I'm really happy for Brax, especially. Um, but yeah, I think 100 Thieves will take that match versus T1. I think Sentinels, everyone's kind of curious to see how they're going to play, and they'll definitely have a challenge getting to the finals. So they got to show up day one, and then people want to see how consistent we are too. And then Envy is like and a stellar team. You
Yeah.
know, they could easily be a number one team right now. So we haven't talked about them at all. But like I said, we feel pretty comfortable against them. We just need to make it through Spazzy Renegades first.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I feel you, man. Well, with that said, I think my top storylines. I think you guys have all covered the big ones pretty effectively. I think as we already highlighted, for me, TSM Sentinels definitely something to root for right out of the gate. But that's something that we might be denied. So if that is the case for any reason, I'm also really a huge supporter of what 100 Thieves are doing with their lineup. I think they hit a pretty sweet spot in terms of being just barely prepared enough to kind of crystallize their style of play and their structure and their chemistry and everything that goes into competing. Because they were looking for those last two players in Asuna and Dicey for quite a while, so they didn't have maybe as much time as they wanted to kind of make the qualifiers. But as highlighted, I think by Connor earlier, like they improved game to game to game. So I have my eyes on them, and I want to see what they can deliver because they have everything. This could be a huge tournament for them, and equally the whole I by Power storyline is some the redemption storyline. I think that's going to be my pick outside of the TSM Sentinels one. And also, actually, in terms of the EU, I am curious if FPS can use this event to become the best EU team. If G2 fall off and FPX show more new stuff, which is what they have been continually kind of doing, I think this could be where they assert their dominance. So loads of storylines. I mean, it's hard to pick one, but that's just fantastic because you don't have to pick one. You just have to be aware of them, and it just will make your viewing experience better. So love that. And speaking of that, making your viewing experience better, we already talked about how much the meta shifts in this game and how we have all this downtime between events where so many things are moving, these pieces are moving, behind the curtain. We can't see what's going on as spectators. But I want to start the discussion about the current meta and what we can. Obviously, I don't want you guys to give away anything that you're doing or anything like that, but what can we speak to here? Because we have this flash meta that's in play right now. I think that's like a big talking point in terms of any meta discussion right now. Is this something that's just really annoying? Are you enjoying it? Is it making your lives easier or harder as coaches to try to prepare for games and to create solutions? What is your take initially with the flash meta?
Yeah, I kind of like it. We use sorry, we use it quite a lot. In general, it's just an easy, fast way to use a combo in the teams. I'm not sure it's the only meta, but I think it is like the easiest meta to implement at the moment. In terms of playing against it, you kind of just you play so much against it now, especially in Europe, that you're just kind of ready for a lot of it. You just know there's certain positions that you can't play, or maybe you have to play anti-flash. Um, so yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but it's definitely something that we're kind of more aware of now. But I'm not entirely sure that's the whole meta that we'll see going into First Strike. I know a lot of teams will use that. But I'm not sure if that's like the only thing we'll see. Because there's definitely a lot of other different comps that work. It's pretty much just like a jet. You can use jet or you can use no jet. And using jet's a lot easier and takes a lot less time to kind of make it work. But there's definitely other comps that you can use without jet, but it just takes a bit more planning, I believe.
Yeah, do you think it's the case as well that we are there going to be some let's say this is hypothetical, will there be teams with these compositions that are kind of very flash oriented that could go into this tournament, and there's going to be some teams that have created pretty specific solutions to deal with that, or is the flash meta so good that it's kind of hard to direct counter with a composition that, let's say, cuts off lots of line of sight and has lots of various other answers?
There was like a super easy way to counter it that no one did. I can say it because, well, yeah, I'll say it. But you can pretty much use a Viper most of the time, and you just cut off half the sight, and then you just do the wall behind like whatever thing they're gonna flash through, so it like never affects it. But then that counter just gets eradicated with Sky because you just now flash through the wall. So it's like we never actually got to see that meta kind of come into play. I think maybe I saw Cloud9 Korea play it once. And that was cool to see them counter it. Kind of similar. They were like halfway there. It was pretty much they had the right plan, and they counted it perfectly. It worked really well. But then we never really got to see it because no one used Viper. It wasn't enough time, and now Sky's here, so it just doesn't really work as well.
We added some of those in with Phoenix and Viper on Split, and then Sky came out, and I was like, well, okay.
Yeah, that was a waste of time.
Oh my god, poor Viper, man. It feels like Viper has been just this is so difficult for people to. It's like you have to really try to shoehorn her into compositions.
Yeah.
Still,
she's so strong. She is so strong, but you just have to base your whole comp around her. Really,
I hope that she isn't seen a ton because 4 months ago I made a $50 bet that Viper would not get buffed enough to where we would see her in competitive Valorant.
Oh, she's already there, dude.
So I got $50 on the line. She needs to be used in 25% or more of the maps in the final tournament. That was the rules.
You're safe on that.
Yeah,
bet,
right?
You'll be good. Yeah.
Pay me now.
The amount of effort you have to put in to make her work it's just not worth it right now. But she's really strong. She's a really strong character.
Kind of unbelievable on Icebox though, for sure. At least from where I'm standing from. I feel like she's unreal Icebox, but I don't know what the kind of meta is in NA for using her. I spoke to Dazed a little bit, but the Icebox in EU is wild right now. It's absolutely wild. So yeah, I can't wait. I hope I get to see an NA game to kind of see where it is. But we've played loads of games. We played like probably 15 to 20 games at the moment. There's quite a few teams playing it in EU. Lot of Viper, a lot of Viper, but it makes a lot of sense if you do it right.
That's really interesting. Actually, so Icebox is an interesting thing in general. We haven't really seen that. Like, is that something that's going to be picked by teams? Will teams try to avoid it? How was initially the reception was that everybody hates Icebox, and like just this is like a ubiquitous thing in the pro scene and the casual scene. Everyone seems to hate playing Icebox. So are people warming up to it now?
Change.
I think so. Personally, we love it. Like, we love it.
I like Icebox too. I don't get why people complain about it.
I think the more you play it, the more you're like, actually, this isn't too bad. It definitely is a bit too big. Like, it is a bit too big. Like the 10 to 12 second rotation from one side to another is a bit madness. In my opinion, it reminds me of like Contra from CS.
Contra, yes.
Play that. But then they added that like little river in to make you faster just because the rotation was so big. So it's a bit like that map just without the little river that speeds you up. It's a bit of madness. But I actually think it plays pretty well. It's just a little bit too big.
Yeah, I think for some reason NA teams wouldn't even scrim it when it came out. It was impossible for me to find scrims. And we wanted to start playing it day one, even though it wasn't in the upcoming tournament. But now teams are grinding it. So this week we're playing a lot of Icebox going into the tournament. So but I like the map.
Can you guys explain the rules, Taylor? Like, how often are we going to see Icebox in this? Is it a gentleman's agreement, like Call of Duty kids do, to not pick specific maps that they hate?
Fuck that.
Like, what is going to be the Icebox and Sky situation coming into these First Strike finals?
Well, Sky is definitely going to be played. You're going to see her on quite a few teams. She's a really strong agent. She's a good mix of like Sova, Breach, and she just adds a lot of support, and the healing factor is pretty crazy. Her ult is crazy. She's just really strong. So I think you're gonna see her quite a bit, and then Icebox you're gonna see banned a lot in NA. But it's always important for me when maps get added that we're not scared of the new map. I always want to be really comfortable on it. We were really comfortable on Ascent when it came out. I made Split our main priority during beta and the first few months of the game. and it helped us win tournaments. So we're never shying away from a new map. I don't care how crazy it is.
And is the finals a best of 3, or is it the first best of 5 where we'd almost be
BO5.
guaranteed to see it, right?
Yeah,
So
BO5.
you wouldn't ban a map in that scenario, so we wouldn't see a map repeat. You would just choose the order.
Yeah, so if there's no map advantage going into the final, so it depends how many maps you go. But depending on who makes it to the final, that might be the first time you actually see it in NA. But I don't know. We're not going to shy away from it. So
That's good to hear. I think this event's going to be really interesting to kind of get a read as to who's really embraced it and who maybe suffers, for not embracing it. And also, I'm pretty stoked to see some Viper action there. And you guys were talking about Sky and her strengths. I'm curious. Do you feel like every single ability is nuts for Sky, or is it just, let's say, the application of one or two that makes it particularly insane?
It's pretty. I mean, the flash, the pigeon, the bird, whatever it is. It's pretty. The fact that it tells you when you flash someone is a bit mad. In my
that's the
opinion.
craziest part. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm not sure it needed that. To be honest,
Yeah.
I'm really not sure it needed that.
It
But
tells you
yeah,
when someone's turn too. So even if you're not blinding them, it's the info gathering is insane. It's like having 3 Sova darts.
yeah, it's it's super strong, and the ult isn't like at its full potential yet. The ult's still like a little bit buggy. It can't go up like certain things. So
Yeah.
like it bugs out on like Haven and stuff like that. So once that gets fixed, it will be even more strong. Yeah, it's a really strong kit in general. Honestly, like the dog, the heal is really sick, especially in pistols. And yeah, the flashes that let you know if you've blinded someone are just
Yeah.
wild. So yeah, we're gonna see it. We're gonna see it.
I'm actually unclear on her ult, whether or not it targets random people or the closest 3 people, because I've read 4 articles now that are contradictory, and I've had 2
Right.
devs tell me that it's random, and then 1 dev tell me that it's not random. So I can't even get a clear answer on how her ultimate works, and I need to go in a server and actually test it with my team on quite a few spots.
Yeah, I think we're in the same page. We're not too sure
Yeah.
how it works. We've had a few times we've ulted and there'll be like a guy like really close behind us and it just
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
We're like, oh, okay, it must be random.
I think it's just buggy, and it's supposed to
Yeah,
hit the
I think
closest people.
I think it's really buggy right now, like really buggy. But maybe it'll get fixed. Who knows?
All right, we talked Flash meta, we talked Sky and Icebox a little bit. Is there anything else that is striking from a composition perspective that we should be looking out for when we go into First Strike? Things teams will be doing that are different, or what are we thinking in terms of like what people have been working on? And again, I know you guys might not want to give away anything, so it could be a tricky subject to dance around, but yeah, is there anything there?
Yeah, I can go in. I know I saw. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about our team, but I saw FPX were doing on Bind. They were doing like a pretty cool comp, um, which was I'm not going to be able to say it now. It's like It was Killjoy, Phoenix, Sova, Raze, and Viper. I think on Bind. Like a lot of damage. You're playing a lot off the double damage that the Spit and your Alarm Bot can do. Like you have all agents that can do damage, and then they have pretty cool set retakes. In terms of like combos. I think it's apart from like the normal comp that you see like Vision Strikers run a lot of the time. I think it's like the second comp that has like the most combos together that you can do in terms of setups and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely worth watching that demo if people haven't seen it. It was their first strike game on Bind. I can't remember who it was against, but it was like their last game that they played on Bind. It was a really cool comp, really cool way of playing it. We had talked and thought about it a few times, but it takes a lot of work to make it good. So yeah, so shout out to them for doing
I think
something
it was
new.
against Opportunist. Not
Yeah,
100% on that.
I think that might be right. Yeah, I think that might be right.
All right. Well, any extra things to add on the meta discussion before we go into final thoughts?
I was going to ask if there's anyone in EU running Sentinel-less comps.
We have come up against a few in Prac, but we're not sure. Yeah, we've come up against a few, but in terms of like officials, I'm not too sure. Quite a few people are using Sage again, honestly.
Yeah, we've talked about adding her in to a few maps. She's still really strong
Oh
if you
yes,
use her wall correctly.
yeah, super strong. So yeah, but yeah, we haven't come up against that too much. I'm probably seeing more people use Killjoy than Cypher recently. I think.
That's kind of weird to me. Killjoy just
For
seems
the
like
turret.
such a pain in the ass to use right now. It's like not worth the
Oh
trouble.
really? See, I really like Killjoy at the moment. I think Killjoy's. I kind of like the buffs that they did to Killjoy. Well, I know people calling it nuffs or whatever. What the changes, whatever it is. I kind of like it. Yeah, it can play. It plays completely different.
Yeah,
But I think it's pretty strong, honestly.
I'm just
yeah.
excited.
I think
Matchmaking game
people.
will totally change after this event because I feel like everyone's been running like 3-month-old strats and just still rushing sites in the lower levels. It's gonna be fun to see people watch this event and then actually use a sky in their game and maybe try and set their teammate up a little bit more after watching the pros play.
It's very
Yeah.
optimistic.
Yeah.
With that said, let's move on to some final thoughts here. You know, we talked about, of course, you know, First Strike stuff, but we also at the top of the show we were talking about this amazing new announcement featuring the 2021 calendar for the Valorant Championship Series type thing that we have to look forward to, and that's amazing as well. So that's something that I'm super excited about. I'm sure everybody is, and you know, we can see that on the screen right now. It has this system that feeds into a huge finals. Cannot wait for all of that and just all of the storylines and as they develop and seeing how each region starts to perform because we'll get a better look into each region and that's one of the also the most exciting things about Valorant is just how regional this game is and how much we can see from region to region. That's different. So that's very exciting. And of course, I think for me in terms of the things that I'm most looking forward to. I think we covered in the storylines segment. I think we had I think that was like all the gold was there pretty much. So I don't think I have anything to add personally to some of the stuff that we've discussed. But I do want to get your guys' thoughts on what we should be looking forward to and what we should, especially for you, Sliggy and Tailored, like with what Liquid and TSM respectively are going to be going into this tournament. If there's anything we should be looking out for.
In terms of looking out for our stuff, I'm not too sure really. Just kind of, I mean, all of our games are gonna be super hard. They're against like, in my opinion, the top 3 best other teams in Europe. So that's going to be awesome for people to watch. So yeah, just look out for it. I think there's just check out some of the teams that maybe don't have an org. I think a lot of them kind of deserve an org as well at the moment. If there's people like org people like looking to spot, there's a lot of good potential there. So yeah, I think org people should look at Europe a bit. We're not. I don't know why it doesn't get too much love, but I think it definitely deserves some looking at for sure. So yeah, keep an eye on. I mean, all the games are going to be sick. Honestly, there could definitely be some upsets in both regions. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I think right now everyone's just kind of excited for the next year. I'm going to be disappointed if our current lineups in NA can't face the current lineups in EU. That would be sad if a year from now, everything's kind of changed and we'll
Yes.
never get the answer like the EU versus NA question. So, but fucking COVID,
Would you quarantine on a cruise ship? Say Rye has billions of dollars, right?
A
Would you
cruise ship?
quarantine on a cruise ship for 2 weeks in your room or like on a certain quarter where you can't come in to interact with anyone else and then play your matches? I'm trying to think like what is the esports perfect bubble scenario? Because we got to take people from around the world. So why not just meet in the middle of the ocean, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't do
Ryan.
it on a cruise. I think we'd all end up more sick on a cruise ship.
Probably die. Don't do it. All right. Carnival is out. We will look for another sponsor for the esports bubble in 2021.
Maybe something more environmentally friendly. But yeah, we would do a bubble instantly. I would love to play on land. Just give me a fucking land, please. God.
Waiting for it. I think my final thoughts is we talked a lot about EU and NA, but there's other regions going down. To be honest, I'm not caught up with all of them, and I'm actually looking forward to after the tournament's all done is going back and watching all that VOD that'll become public, and I'm really excited for all the VOD analysis that's coming out. Before you guys leave the show, though, I was super pumped to have 2 head coaches, especially 2 of the powerhouse squads in each region, joining the show. who else do you think deserves some love? Because the community right now, they have their star players that they love to watch, but no one really talks about the people behind the scenes. Are there other coaches or managers or people in the scene that you guys feel deserve a shout out in your region?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, like the coaches from our regions definitely deserve like a shout out. The coach from Summon FC is a bit of a beast. He does a lot of work, so Mini definitely deserves a bit of a shout out. Um, and I'll shout out my manager Eamon as well because he's a beast. So
Nice work. Taylor, did anyone in NA?
Yeah, I mean, all the coaches are pretty talkative with each other. I talk with the Renegades coach a lot, Coach Jay. He puts in a ton of work, and he's fairly new to this too. So it's been like a learning process for him. I mean, for all of us, but for him especially. And he's got like a family and a actual job, like a secondary job that he works to. So shouts out to him for putting in the effort and the work to get to where he is. They definitely could use this break. It's a big break for them coming into this final event. So, but yeah, I mean, everyone knows like Fraud and 100 Thieves coach Frost and stuff. Everyone's putting in their individual work right now. So, shouts out to Sentinels for doing what they're doing with no coach too. That's pretty impressive.
True. Excellent stuff. That's it for me, Dan.
Yeah. Well, with that said, I think it's going to be time to close the show. Thank you to everybody for joining us. As Chris said, I share his sentiments. It's so awesome to have two head coaches on sharing the thoughts ahead of First Strike and into next year, 2021 as well. So everybody who is watching this, make sure you check out these guys' streams and all the socials, and make sure that you also are on top of our socials at Immortal Minds, so that you are never going to miss any content that we are putting out there. And of course, if you are listening on the podcast, engaging, liking, subscribing to any of the platforms that you're using is also very helpful for us. Thank you for your support. And with that said, it is all from all of us. We'll see you on the next one.